how do you get to be the first presentation? How do you get to be the first presentation and standing up in front of the board? And that's talking about the market. What's happening in the market? And I have had that opportunity a couple of times when we are doing a market analysis. We are talking about our market share, big moves in the market. So following the CEO's presentation, you do a market update because guess what? You should have a perspective on the market that the board may not see.
Hi, welcome back to SaaS Half Full, the only show serving B2B SaaS marketers. I'm Lindsay Groper, president at Blast Media, and I will be both your host and bartender today. My conversation today is with Syndey Sloan, who is the CMO at Drata. Syndey and I have known each other for many, many years, but it's the first time I've had her on the show, and we are talking about making the case for a chief market officer, dropping that ING in marketing and really owning the market in that role. So if you'd care to, grab a drink and join me as I speak with Syndey from Drata. Hey, Syndey, welcome to SaaS Half Full.
Thank you, Lindsay. Happy to be here with my SaaS Half Full glass of water. Sorry.
Well, I am drinking, of course, I always do. I have a glass of red wine. It's 5:00 where I am, so it's like, But this is unusual. This is my second episode I've recorded today. So this is actually my second drink on a Monday. So let's go. We'll do this thing. But Syndey, first, I met you back when you were at SalesLoft, and then I've known you and met you a couple of times over the last few years, especially with the CMO network, but have never had you on my show. So I'm so excited to have you on today. And we need to point out her title, folks, because I did not say marketing officer. I said chief market officer. Syndey and I are going to dive into the difference and sort of this a bit of an underground movement that's happening to shift perception of and change the role of the CMO. But before we dive into that, Syndey, I do want to give our listeners a bit of understanding of who you are, where you came from. This is not your first CMO role, and you have been a marketer for quite some time. So talk us through a bit of your brief B2B SaaS history, and then certainly please let us know what you're doing today and what the company does.
Sure. So I say I grew up at Adobe. I was there like 17 years and across a variety of roles. I started in field marketing and events and got from there into product marketing. So primarily in product marketing at Adobe. And what a great experience being able to test a skill against multiple segments. So I did enterprise, I did vertical, I did developer. So I went across a lot of different product lines while I was there and really understood operationally how to execute things in a large scale company. And the last thing that we were doing at Adobe was really advocating for this concept of customer experience management, which is the category. And we had Adobe Experience Manager. And so when I left, I'm like, I want to go do the thing that I was advocating for. So I became the head of customer marketing at a company called Jive and ran the Jive on Jive program, which was community and collaboration. And from there, and fun fact, I went from being a senior director to a CMO. So I never was a VP in my career. And so I just give this advice often where people want their first time CMO gig. My advice is go to a company where you already know the market, because then you have the market knowledge behind you, and we'll get to that. And so you can work on being an executive, which is the role of a chief, and know marketing. So I think it gives you an advantage to do better at the executive part of your job when you already know the category that you're working within and the market that you're working within. You come with that level of expertise. And so I did that at Alfresco, and we had an exit. And so went to my next gig, which was at SalesLoft. Awesome ride, and did that for 4 years. Also had an exit. And then I took a year off and worked at Scale Ventures as executive in residence, advising. And then I joined Drata just about a year ago. So we are a leader in the governance, risk, and compliance space, GRC it's referred to, and we're basically transforming the industry. So where before, these are people and teams that keep your company safe and do the audits that prove that. So if you've heard of a SOC 2 or an ISO, they're all about setting the precedence of what are the policies and controls you put in place to keep your company safe and secure. And a lot of times that would be done where you're doing manual audits, collecting evidence, putting in document management systems and spreadsheets. And when the audit comes around, it's this 2-month painful process. And what Drata has done is for cloud-based companies, we figured out how to connect to all the core systems to automate the evidence collection to keep you in compliance and to notify you when you're going out of compliance. So we're automating GRC.
Love it. GRC, SOC 2. I do have a question with your experience never being a VP and skipping straight to CMO. Was that a role that was open for which you applied? Was that a role that you asked for? How did you make that jump?
It was a role that was open. I wanted to go for my first CMO role. And so I thought, oh, I'll go Series A, get my feet wet in a smaller company. And some of the recruiters that I was working with, one of them, his name's Pete Steinley, he's over at Lightspeed now, was recruiting for the CMO role. He was introducing me to some of the A's. And then he's like, you know what? I think you might be a good fit for this. So the company was a C series. It's 75 million in ARR, not what I thought I would get from my first CMO. And I just have to thank my boss there, Doug Dennerlein, for choosing me and supporting me. And it was a great ride. We transformed there. We went from a developer-centric offering to selling to CIOs. I felt really supported by Doug. And so I was able to take risks in my first time.
I love that. And great shout out to those early champions and advocates. We'll have to tag them in this episode. Let them know, yes, that you is still thinking of them often. We were talking about this idea of the constant reinvention of marketing. And we're going to still talk about that to a degree. But I actually went up and looked what is the definition of a reinvention? And it sort of made me laugh. It is the act of producing something new and based on something that already exists, or to make something as if for the first time, something that's actually already invented. And those two definitions made me laugh because that is so true. If you are a marketing leader and what you've experienced, maybe throughout your whole career, but specifically the last 18 months, boy, are we making new things out of things that already have existed before more than ever. So your title is Chief Market Officer. You have crossed out the ING, which is the act of doing something. Why is that?
I like to be helping with the strategy of the company. I believe that when you're looking at what should we do as an organization is all in context of your customer and the market they live in, not the one we live in. So we talk about category creation, all these things, but you first have to start with the customer and understand what is their world and what role do I play in it? And then secondly, what about all the other people that play in that same market? And so it's a broader view of how to think about go-to-market if you really understand it from the market lens first. So I'll use SalesOps as an example because your audience might be more sales and MarTech oriented than cybersecurity. And so you think of, there's CRM, that's core, everybody uses it. And then what do I would call it rev tech stack, so sales and marketing stack, what do they look like? What are the core capabilities that people have to put in as the foundation layer, the next layer, the layer after that? And really understanding, who are the players in each one of those categories? How does it all come together? And then what role do I want to play? Do I want to partner in that category? Do I want to play in that category? Do I want to build in that category? And so then you have a broader strategy from a market point of view, and you get to do it with your partners, which I think is an X factor that a lot of people don't consider in the strategic side of go-to-market. So I always start there, the market view. And if the marketing team can have a strong point of view, then I think it elevates our voice in the go-to-market strategy and makes us a stronger member of the go-to-market team. And I can give examples of how I do that in a minute.
Yeah. And it is interesting when you think about it. You think about all of the other members that make up the C-suite, and market is the only one thing on it. We're not human resourcing, and we're not financing and revenuing and executing. Those are things that are being done, but that's not part of the title. What do you think initially just drove this to be a different, essentially, title than the other members of the C-suite?
Well, I remember back in college when I took, a course, it was pricing, packaging, placement, and positioning, the 4 Ps. And so pricing, packaging, placement, and positioning also doesn't say, well, what market am I in? That's product in that case. And how do you determine that piece? And so it's well, what are my customers? What problem am I solving for customers? And who figured that out before? Maybe it was product. When I was at Adobe, we had 2 product marketing roles. We had an inbound and an outbound. So the inbound was taking market insights, and we were writing market requirements documents. I mentioned MRDs to my team the other day, and they all started laughing. Probably doesn't exist in this world, but really the market requirements and the market requirements gathering in partnership with the product team. That's different. That's making sure that we're bringing that point of view in partnership. It's all to me about partnership. So I'm partnering with product on bringing those insights and requirements to the conversation with the product teams, partnering with sales on, how do we position and how do we identify the right markets and how do we go after them collectively together? And then partnering with the customer success teams on how do we ensure customers are successful? What's that right migration path for cross-sell and upsell as a customer matures in working with us? Those are all pieces of the go-to-market equation.
How did you make the case for a chief market officer title?
It wasn't posted as a chief market officer role, sadly, not yet. I don't make a big deal of it internally. I think it's more advocating externally. When I joined, one of the first things that I did was a market segmentation analysis and led a highly collaborative ELT half-day working session on identifying what our approaches were and bringing data to the equation and getting to a decision at the end what the top 3 should be that we focus on. So we went from 12 different good ideas to 3 focused execution areas to execute. And it's not that the 12 ideas weren't wrong. It's just, and I say this a lot, so sorry, but 12 at once is what the problem was. Like rule of threes applies here. It doesn't matter if it's a $10 million company, 100 million or a billion, like getting the company to focus. Even Frank Sloan says it should be one thing in his Amp It Up. And so like, what are the 3 things collectively we can focus on as a company and then align our teams behind it so we execute flawlessly against those strategies? And it's really hard to do that and to stay focused.
I bet. Yeah, it's that sort of math. If you're a jack of all trades, you're a master of none. How could you possibly be functioning across those 12 well?
When I was doing advisory, I was talking to a company and, they're like, and we're going to expand to financial services and government. I think there were 2 verticals. Like, why? Why would you do that? How penetrated are you in your market today? What percentage market share do you think you have? Sub 20%. Like, why would you start to diversify already? How much market share is left? Why not continue to execute and get even better at what you do? And if you are going to try something, try one and put the right resources in to make it successful and understand like financial services and government are both long-term investments. So if you're looking at your other segments, is there one that's maybe more tangential to SaaS tech that could be a better fit versus like, spreading your peanut butter too thinly? What would it take to be successful? Do you need 10 people, $1 million in 12 months? Okay, make that bet and let them run with it. Let's just say all the time, I see companies trying to do too much and not put enough resources in, and they want speed and they want it to happen. And how do you find product market fit? How long does it take? What is the right team to identify that and find it works and then double down on it?
I have a follow-on 2-part question. Many of you are listening and you're like, oh, I'm a CMO and I'm a chief marketing officer and great. My first question is, what are some telltale signs that your board and or CEO and or investors are focusing too much on the ing? What's happening so that those who are listening can be like, okay, it's coming from here. And then there's going to be a second part to this question. What are you hearing? What are they seeing?
Yeah, I mean, in all fairness, everybody's had to cinch their belts the last couple of years. And, the market dynamics have changed and budgets have changed and our ability to make bets has changed because of those things. And so I think we have to be mindful as stewards of the company's money because they give us the money to create markets and to generate revenue and pipeline. How do you show that efficiency? And so absolutely, you have to show that you are on top of the investments and making a commitment to your pipeline number and improving the processes and squeezing the juice and really, owning that responsibility. I'll take it back though to market for a second. If you're asked to execute against 6 strategies, how efficient can you be? Can you be more efficient if you're executing against 2? So I've done a couple of times like, okay, we have 3 strategies. We have 5 strategies because we couldn't get to 3, but marketing is going to invest 80% of our effort against the top 2 strategies. So I can ensure that we're successful, that I can ensure that we're delivering a return on investment and trying to get more and more efficient every time. And then do I always get it? No, like I wish, but it is something within the control as you're like executing your campaigns and investing in your pipe gen. Like, where do I put the most money where I'm going to get the best return on investment? Right. And that helps kind of prove out the case when you're looking at investing in tangential markets less, you may get less from it. So show the data, and then you can continue focusing on the ones that pay back the most in terms of return.
Second further question is what you should be presenting to the board and CEO. My very, very first SaaS Half Full episode over 3 years ago was with Carrie Lou Dietrich, who we both know. And it was around I think it was a 5-slide or 6-slide board presentation for marketing. And everyone was like, what? But you're going to have all sorts of asks, right? And everybody in the room is going to maybe be interested in something a little bit different. But in your opinion, how do you control that narrative in that moment?
I'll give 2 answers. I'll give the, hey, everybody has to do these 4 slides answer, and then how to become more strategic. So, I think you have to provide the data. You have to show the investment, the funnel, and trending. That's a huge thing. If you're not showing trends in terms of like investment approval, if it's not going up and to the right, then you have to explain why. Sadly, not everybody gets the job that's up and to the right. And so you have to have an explanation for it. And so being able to talk about the market dynamics, talk about competition, talk about the change in the investment model. So if you're getting less in marketing, they can't expect you to run at the same rate. So I've worked with people where I'm like, do the predictive model. What is $1 today investment? When does it pay out? If you're in a high volume velocity, it pays out in 30 days. If you're not, they're going to see that impact 6 months from now. So just heads up, predict where that line is going to go based on the investments of today, and be responsible in how you're communicating that. That's the first thing, is like, you have to show the dashboard. That's what board members want. They want to be able to see trends so they can figure out where to help. The other thing that I like to do is like dissect pipeline, not just marketing pipeline, but the others. Like show that you're looking at the process, that you're looking at the stages and conversions and trying to identify trends there, and what can you do to try and help with that. So I'm a big fan of looking at that trending. And then I usually pick one topic. If I have a big campaign or the team is about ready to launch, if we're entering into a new market, then I want to do a deep dive on a topical area. That's the first answer. The second answer, and I have to shout out Latney for this one. How do you get to be the first presentation? How do you get to be the first presentation and standing up in front of the board? And that's talking about the market. What's happening in the market? And I have had that opportunity a couple of times when we are doing a market analysis. We are talking about our market share, big moves in the market. So following the CEO's presentation, you do a market update, because guess what? You should have a perspective on the market that the board may not see. They're investing in many different companies across many different industries. So how do you do a market update? And then what's your role within it? So it covers competition, which is a topic that a lot of times gets talked about, predicting where the market is going, big shifts. What are we seeing in the analysts? Like, give that insight and take the lead on doing that presentation.
Yeah, I love that, is to lead with the market and raise your hand and say, this is the order that I want to go. I want to go after the CEO and talk more market. From what I'm hearing you say is that oftentimes the board wants to know that the sausage is good and not how the sausage is made. And sometimes we just go in and like, here's how we're making the sausage. And it's too much, right? And you're leading with more of that ing, when I think it was Carrie Lou, maybe it was Nora, but someone had said that the board cares, really what they want to leave with is the confidence that you're the right person for the job. You've got it, you know the market, and that however you decide to attack that market, that's your business. But that's what they want to leave with, is the confidence that you've got it.
Yeah. I'm actually on a board, so I sit on the other side of the table too. And so, it is really interesting when you're checking in on a company once, like we get a monthly update, and then once a quarter, you're spending a day. So yes, keep it at a trend level, keep it at a high investment level. I love the ING of marketing too, and all the speeds and feeds, but you don't want the board's eyes to glass over. So really think about topics that the board can help with. And I'm a fan of send the data ahead of time, but pick topics for board level discussions that go deeper, that are not just the updates. And so definitely recommend that if you're not doing that already. Work with your board to like, no, we'll send the data ahead of time. If you have any questions, we can handle that. We can address it in like the update. And don't represent the same slide. Let's use the time to talk about strategy. That's what we remember as a board member. Like last board, we talked about this big thing. How's that going? And so if you're in the minutia, like try to remember the minutia of 12 companies that some of these board people are on. It's too much.
Have the data if you need the data, or send the data in advance and then focus on top level. Because my assumption is, I want to check this, is that rarely in those board meetings are you getting the question of, oh, well, how do, I see our paid search budget is up. What was the ad copy or what ad copy did we use for that? And why didn't it go well? My assumption is that those questions aren't being asked.
They are not in my world ever. But I do like to do show and tell. So if I have a great ad campaign, I'm going to put like some of the ad inspiration in the deck as that topic. But no, nor should they be. But if you have a large ad budget and all of a sudden your cost per lead is going up and your conversion's going down, that's what they should be looking for. Like what's happening in the efficiency. I was just on G2's executive advisory board. We had a meeting last week and we were talking about how to get more efficiency. And half of the group stopped doing or has pulled back on their branded search terms. No difference. Imagine that. So test it out. They did like one day on, one day off, one day on, one day off. We pulled back too and seen really good efficiency. If someone's actually searching for you, they'll still look for you, but test it. So half did, half hadn't. I'm curious if someone will try it more. And so that was interesting. And then how do you repurpose that money to other channels? Yeah.
For the folks listening who are looking at a CMO role as their potential next step, maybe they are complete rock stars like you and are going to skip the VP level. Maybe they're at the VP level. What advice do you have? What's something actual that they can do tomorrow to start positioning themselves and having the right people see them as the market leader as opposed to the person just doing the work?
Yep. I would do 3 things. If you're looking to be a CMO and you haven't yet been, there's great courses out there. Like Pavilion has a CMO course. Like go and get frequent on your training, like take a certification course, do something that shows that you're investing in learning. The second is, I mentioned before, seek out companies that you already know, like that you're fans of. Be asked to be an advisor and get to know the teams. And if a CMO role opens up, then you are qualified for that, or they might know of somebody. So like try and put yourself in a position of success based on your experience and your area of expertise and interest. That always helps because then you've already got that when you need to come in and learn the executive role, which is the third thing. If you don't yet have a coach, if you haven't worked on your executive presence, those soft skills, knowing how to coach people, hold people accountable, like I would get one. I think that I do a lot of mentoring and advisory. Like if they want to be a CMO, put yourself in the position to win and learn the skills. And a coach is a great way to do that. Your network is a great way to do that. Going to CMO events is a great way to do that. So definitely like building out that network so you can learn from others who've been before.
Love that. What else haven't we tackled as it relates to owning the market that you think is relevant?
Partners. So part of owning the market and creating that market, if you can find the right partnerships to do it with, where you're all working together and saying the same story, cross-pollinating into each other's customer segments. Like I believe that partnerships is a 1 + 1 = 10 relationship if you do it really well. And it starts with having that alignment on like, who are we going after? Like an ICP alignment, making sure we have the messaging, the materials, and then working with the rest of the go-to-market team on establishing those relationships, co-selling, creating customer stories together, like do the deep relationship on those strategic companies that can really help pull you into a market. If you're the smaller partner in the equation, expect to do 80% of the work. You are going on their coattails. You need to be the easiest partner to work with. You need to make it easy for them and give more than they give. They're bigger, but they can pull you into new markets. And so that's the advantage of that. If the number 1 company won't go exclusive with you or give you the time of day, go to number 2. That's okay. And execute with them. That's still getting yourself into that tangential market and building your brand and your story bigger than just what you sell.
What are some examples you can give of partnerships where you've really like seen immediate value, and what do you give that credit to?
Well, I've mentioned a few of them already. So at my sales loft days, we picked our favorites. We picked the favorite in every group. And so in account based at the time, we picked 6 Sense and tangentially. So, having executive co-sponsorship. So it was Latney and myself. We built specific product integrations where we gave each other exclusive for a period of time so we could differentiate when we went together. We co-sponsored things together. We were at each other's conferences. Our salespeople knew each other. We used each other's technology and advocated for each other. Then we brought Drift into the equation. So Trisha Gelman joined. And so we became like the three of us kind of continuing to tell each other's story. Funny enough, Sales Loft and Drift are now one, which is also a strategic part of doing good partnership. They create acquisition opportunities and exits for the smaller companies. So I always recommend that. At Drata, we're doing things with different partners. So we have an awesome relationship with KnowBe4, where they were end of lifing a product that we had a solution for. So we fit right in and are working closely with them, or at some of our other channel partners. AWS is a huge partner. Going back to that conversation about if they're bigger, the most transactions in the AWS marketplace last year was Drata. How do you show up in that big? Like, you give everything to have that. And we're in now as their number one partner in GRC. And it will be very hard for a competitor to get in there because of our dedication to that partnership at that time. It doesn't have to be exclusive forever, by the way, too, with partners. So if you're entering new markets, like, a year, we're going to do this together for a year and then open it up. And maybe you pick a different partner and then go work that if the first partnership wasn't working as well. But at the end of the day, with all partnerships, the success or failure is field engagement. If your salespeople aren't sharing deals, if they're not working accounts together, if you can't figure out how to make that work, it will be a struggle to see success.
Yeah, I underlined that part about exclusivity of it doesn't have to be full on forever exclusivity, but ask for a period of time.
Oh, yeah. And your reps can't have more than too many relationships too. So if you've got we've got 10 go-to-market partners, you expect one rep to work with 10 reps, know the story, again, power of 3, power of 2, focus, my favorite F word.
Absolutely. Well, this has been awesome, Syndey. Thank you so much. I ask all of my guests at the end of every episode, even they're drinking water, if you have a favorite or a signature toast to send us out.
Well, in the spirit of what we just said, I'll do this one. Here's to you and here's to me. The best of friends will always be. But if by chance we disagree, then fuck you and here's to me.
I have so used that one before. I love it. And it's the first time it's ever been used on this show, if you can believe it.
Oh, yay.
There you go. I love that. Thank you so much, Syndey. I appreciate the time. This has been an awesome discussion. Thanks again to Syndey for joining me on SaaS Half Full. I absolutely love that toast. It is one that I usually have not had on this show yet. Hopefully you took away a thing or two that you can start incorporating into your day-to-day, whether you currently are a CMO or have aspirations for that as your next role. Thanks so much for listening. And until next time, bottoms up.